going to carry on with our theme for the month, which is looking towards the light, or what they call contre-jour painting. So this is my photograph looking down the steps at least, near towards the Lee station. And yeah, last week I basically just did underpainting, so quite a lot of it has disappeared now, but this bit here is as it was. So it's a very thin wash just to kind of get rid of the white of the canvas. And that way I can get an idea of the balance of the lights and the darks. And then what I've done then is just gradually intensify the colour. So I'm using the water mixable oils. So I thought I'd use water mixable oils, but I'll talk a little bit about acrylics as well on another bit of paper or something like that. So basically what I've been doing is using this canvas. It's got quite a tooth and quite a texture, so if I put the colour on straight off, it might just come out a little bit too thick and strong. My brush is a bit wet, so it's not going to do that. But I've basically been using a little bit of painting medium. So it's like the water mixable thinners and then a little bit of oil or medium with it mixed together. And that helps the paint to flow a little bit. So I quite like the colours to be a little bit more fluid, something a bit like that. They'll go on a bit easier. My approach is sort of working the background to foreground, so I've done some of the sky, then gradually working forwards. And then I may go back to certain areas and just add and tweak a little bit. So this is this area here, that was a little bit thin there, so I'm going to go a little bit stronger into there. And then any darks can go in at the same time, some slightly darker bits. The other thing to mention is like the brush size. So sometimes if you use brushes that are too small, it all looks a little bit fidgety, and you can get more of a fluid look if you're using slightly bigger brushes. So I don't just use bigger brushes, but it's quite nice to start with, to sort of use something that's a reasonable size. So the range of brushes I've got here, I've got that's a fairly smallish one, and then this, obviously the big one, is good for these, washing in big areas. And this has been quite nice to sort of work in the shapes in the tree, things like that. The other brushes that I quite often use, like sometimes if I've got like details and things like long grasses, I find these rigger brushes quite good. So these are like a very thin brush, and if I want to paint thin lines or anything like that, I can get a nice fine line. I'll just demonstrate down there where you can see it. So you get a nice sort of fine line. So it could be like if there's grasses or things like these railings here, I could use something like that to get a nice thin rock. So that's a little bit about the oil. So I'll just pop that down for a minute. The other thing would be acrylic. So I noticed one or two people are using acrylic. So this was just the water mixable oils. Yeah, just using the oils. I'll just pop that down. So with acrylics, one of the things I've found a little bit of a struggle is keeping the paints wet enough to work. So I use this little box to keep them in. When I'm doing these quick demos, I just use one of these, but you can actually set up a palette that's like a stay wet palette. So it's basically a wet surface, like a bit of kitchen roll or dishcloth, something like that, and then put a piece of tracing paper over the top. And then when you mix the paint on there, the water kind of permeates through, and you can keep some of your mixes wet for a bit longer. So I'm painting, sometimes I would do that, particularly when painting outdoors with acrylics. The other thing is using medium. So I've got various mediums that I've got for acrylics. So that would be like a slow drying gel. So you can mix that in with the colours to just delay the drying a bit. The thing about that is though it does sort of weaken the consistency, the strength of the colour. The other one I use sometimes is just these are like a more fluid medium, like a gloss medium or a matte medium. That one's a matte medium. Let's pull a bit of that out because I pulled that out and it started drying up a bit. So these I find quite useful if I want to blend colours. So some people, if they're using acrylics, just use them in a very kind of blocky way, where you're just leaving the colours and so you could just sort of put some colours down and just leave the marks as they are. If I want to, obviously while the paint is wet, I can still blend the colours nicely like that. And this is where using a big brush can come in quite nicely. Because otherwise the colour would dry, with the little brush, the colour dries almost instantly, and then you just get lots of little marks. So a bigger brush, you can get a more fluid look. The other thing I sometimes do is just paint a little bit of medium onto the surface that I want to work with. So say that was the surface I want to work with, and then if I just want to blend that in gradually, I can just kind of blend that in like that, and that's the closest I can get to sort of blending colours once the acrylic's dried, really. So if you've got like a dried colour underneath, you can paint some medium over the top and then paint some more colour over the top, and you get that impression of blended colour. It's not actually blending, it's more like glazing, but it will give you a softer look, which can be I think can be quite a challenge with acrylics, because they are, and particularly this sort of environment. So we're actually starting to warm up a bit. It's been quite cold in here this morning, but they will dry quite quickly. So yeah, if you're somebody who likes acrylics and wants to get a softer look, that's the way go for it. So anybody want to ask anything about that?
What are the names of what you're using?
Yep, this one I think was, the label's fallen off many years ago. I think it was the Dale Rowney gloss medium. Yeah, this one is from Jackson's. This is a acrylic fluid matte medium. So some are more fluid than others. This one's it's more like a kind of liquid. So that's quite nice. These ones, the slow drying, that's a gel. You can get some of, I don't know, some might be more fluid, I don't know. So that will sort of extend the paint out and slow down the drying a bit.
So what would you use more often, the gloss one?
I don't do much acrylic painting, to be honest. I don't tend to use that. Years ago I did used to use that. I don't tend to use it much now. I tend to probably just use the mediums, the gloss medium, something like that. Yeah. It gives me enough time to sort of, blend colours and mix. Yeah. I think for me, I quite like using. Because I've got oils, I've got loads of different oils. If I want to blend something, I just use oils. It's much easier to do that. I like the acrylics for sort of quick sketches. So yesterday I was just trying out some ideas that might make it into paintings. And so I basically just had a drawing and then just painted a bit of acrylic over the top, just very quick sketchy ones. And also did a little bit of sketching outdoors over January with acrylics, just very quick. And they're quite good for things like street scenes where you've got lots of changes, or one thing might be seen in front of another. Like you'd have like maybe a building there and then perhaps some windows. So I could put some colour down for the building, that would dry. I could put another colour for the window, that would dry. Then paint the window frames over the top of that. So some things that it seemed to me to work quite well with architectural things. I think I struggle with the sort of softer kind of things with acrylics. But that could be a way over. I brought another little book about acrylics. I quite like this chap's work. So I think he's dead now, but he worked in acrylics. And I think he uses that, and this is kind of where I got this idea of glazing. So using a bit of colour like that, that's dried already, you know. So that it's so, you know, that bit there's wet, but that bit is dried. But it does mean that I could, if I wanted, you know, put another colour over the top of that and still have a little bit of that showing through. So that could be that could be a way forward if you wanted to work with acrylics, but wanted, you know, slightly softer looking acrylics. It's finding out what suits really, what you feel most comfortable with. Right.